Well, this is the first time that Larian's really engaged with cinematic content, especially at this level of fidelity and this quality. So all of this had to be built sort of custom. It was sometimes difficult, sometimes challenging, but ultimately we ended up with something that we're really happy with.
It's stunning, honestly. Like the amount of work and care that went into this, you can just feel it in every second. When you're engrossed in the story, that feeling is still underlying everything. It's a foundation of what they poured into this game, and I can't wait to see the whole thing. I love how it blends cinematic feel and playing D&D feel.
We aim to capture that feeling of an epic adventure, and we want to translate that into a rich visual experience for players. Animation-wise, being able to bring all these creatures to life with all their little mannerisms, their little behaviors, for the players to see that, it adds a whole new level to the experience.
The thing that makes Baldur's Gate enjoyable and like a D&D experience is these really diverse cast of characters that you could have join on your adventure.
Fans of D&D who are familiar with the lore and fans of the previous series will be familiar with iconic locations such as Elfson Tavern, the Worm's Crossing, and obviously Baldur's Gate itself.
From the start, we wanted to really capture the feeling of being around the table. So the main challenge was usually scope. And that is something that our cinematics team and our writing team had to deal with, the huge scope of all of the possibilities that whatever you can do.
It feels like a modern evolution, sort of a faithful glow up of the original.
So the scope of the story majorly grows as you go further and further into Act 2 and then Act 3 eventually. So what you have seen in Act 1 is only a glimpse of how the story begins.
One of the big conversations that we have is making sure that we're reinforcing what the player has done along their journey and what they have yet to do and where their possible effects could be.
The amount of mocap and VO that we had to shoot to sort of cover all those different permutations, it is a large task, but ultimately I think it's going to be like such fan service and give people the play and the reaction that they expect based on their choices.
What the player will be fighting against, obviously all of the classic and fun Dungeons & Dragons characters that we could really cook up. You know, everything you can imagine. And then we also have our main antagonists like Gortash, Orin, we have Ketheric as well.
Orin is one of the most fascinating people that I've ever had the chance to work on. She is relentless. She is just a law unto herself. Her perception of the world and her position in it is truly terrifying in a lot of ways. Everything about her has been informed by this utter admiration for this horrendous deity that she worships.
Obviously, if you align with them, and if you actually choose, I wouldn't say the evil path, because the game is very nuanced, right? But if you do, you know, go along with some of them or some of the choices, you'll have them on your side.
Shall we be allies?
You like these characters when you shouldn't like them.
People ask, how much variety is there in a playthrough in Baldur's Gate 3? How long is it? How many different ways can it go? Well, if you just blitz through it, it probably takes a minimum of 80 hours. If you make any kind of distractions whatsoever, if you get involved in the game and start to flesh out your own experience, it can run many times that in length.
Every time that you come back into the game, there's a new path to discover. Like, everything is super non-linear in the story. There's so many different consequences. There's a huge amount of variety and replayability as well, I would say.
It's hard to quantify the amount of story in Baldur's Gate 3, but we have rough estimates. There is a lot of cinematic animation that results in being roughly 3 times the length of the Game of Thrones television series. Word count, there is approximately 1.9 million words being spoken or written.
It took me 2 weeks just to get through Act 1, talking to everybody and having all of these adventures on the side and finding every last person I could talk to and exhausting their dialogue tree and then moving on.
They recombine based upon the choices that you make and that the characters react to in ways that make them feel much deeper than superficial.
The more we progressed the project and the more cinematics were introduced and the camera kept getting closer, the more and more people feel immersed into their character, into the world.
The way we make sure that the immersion of the player would be consistent between gameplay and cinematic is how the lighting encodes the character where he is. If he has bad thought, the lighting can react and become darker. And if he's actually happy and overjoyed, you can see a reaction as well.
The music fully resonates the adventures of the players throughout the story, but in general I'd say that it goes in a very deeper and darker direction. And one of the things that I personally like quite a lot is that the music is fully reflecting the changes in the world, which can happen as a result of the player's decision and actions.
Heed your call. A new chapter begins.
We have such a holistic approach to everything. We are just inundating the player with all of this feedback and all of these rich visuals and rich sound and rich music that we just give them this total experience right from the first step into the game. I mean, I think people are just going to be shocked and amazed by the level of quality and the level of realness that we provided them.
The ambition just grew and grew bigger, and it was never about where's the limit, but how to push that limit.